Okay, gang, Chris Angel coming at you with another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. And today we're talking about looking at the nuances of people's problems in order to not only find content, like topics to talk about in your content, but also to get clear about what it is you actually sell, right? So, backdrop to this conversation. Had a client today, an agency client, who had reached out and said, like, hey, what else should I come up with for topics for our interviews? Which is a common thing. Many times, the reason people want to work with our agency is they feel stuck in what to say. Like, it's not that they don't have anything to say; they have lots to say. But when it comes to creating content, they get like blank brain, right? Blank brain. They're like, what do I talk about? I don't know. So the client reached out to me and said, hey, what do I talk about? I'm stuck on ideas. So I fired back some suggestions to go look for content. One of those suggestions was to look in the nuances of people's problems, right? Like, so this particular client has a web design company, and they also do some marketing consulting, right? Like, they help clarify people's message. They're actually a Story Brand certified guide. And one of the things that they were looking for was like, what do I do? So what do I say? So I said, go look in the nuances of people's problems. In other words, here's an example. What are people considering? What else are people squirreling on? What other shiny objects do people feel like they need to buy? And why shouldn't they buy those things? So that's a nuance. That's a nuance. It's not the obvious content is like, here are some information about websites. Here's information about content marketing messaging. Here's some information about hosting packages. Those are all obvious problems, but nuances inside of the problems are things like knowing that human beings aren't satisfied with just a website and their current whatever plan or thing they have. They're always squirreling for the next thing. They're always looking for like, I feel like I'm missing out. I probably should have some other type of thing. And then they go squirrel and buy something else and like totally distract their momentum. That's a nuance. You can't get to that nuance if you don't understand human nature, right? And so you have to look to yourself sometimes for your own behaviors or patterns to see where you sort of lead yourself astray. Here's another example. Inside of our marketing agency, right? We have a marketing agency. What we do is we produce web shows for people, right? We actually interview our client, and then from those interviews, we produce it as a show. We post it to podcast directories, YouTube channels, Facebook pages. We write an email and a blog post. Like, we do all the stuff. All the client has to do is show up, and we interview them, and we extract all this content, and we post it for them, right? Like, we do all of the work for them. But inside of that, like, what are the nuances? See, for the longest time, I thought the problem I was supposed to solve was lead generation or money. Like business owners often have a roller coaster income, especially if they're word of mouth or referral based businesses, right? Or networking based businesses or people oriented businesses. That's why I created the show, right? Marketing for the Rest of Us. For those of us that haven't mastered Facebook ads and have a bazillion funnels and have all the SEO stuff figured out, right? We're good with people. That's what we do. We're good with people. But how do we compete in the game of marketing? Well, like I said, what part of the nuance of this was that I don't just, it's not really about leads. It's not really about money. What I really solve, and this is such a great realization for me. The nuance of what I really solve is confusion around marketing, right? Like, you as a business owner have all sorts of things you could buy. You have all sorts of coaches you could hire, all sorts of programs you could participate in. And it is overwhelming. There are so many things. And what I have a knack for, what I understand is the person. I understand you, or I can get to understand you, what makes you great, what your assets are, where your strengths are. And I understand marketing in terms of how marketing would best serve you. Most people in business are twisting and contorting to try to figure out how to do marketing the way everybody else says to do marketing, rather than trying to make marketing fit you. I'm really good at that. But for so many years, I thought what I was supposed to do, the problem I was supposed to solve, was leads and money. And it felt weird because in some ways that's not where I'm drawn to. Like what I'm drawn to is the problem in the nuance, which is you're confused. Guys, you can't create leads or more money if you're confused. And what's funny is in that nuance, like all of a sudden the pain gets really clear. Because when you're confused, not only do you not produce consistent leads or have more consistent money, but inside of confusion, you start to doubt yourself, right? How many of you have been confused, right, in all of the marketing information, and you start to doubt yourself? You're like, dude, I thought I was smart. I thought I was good. I'm a hard worker. Nothing's working. Like, why isn't this working? Maybe I should buy another book. Maybe I should go to another course. Maybe I should hire another coach. And all of a sudden we start stacking information on top of information on top of information, and none of it seems to be settling our minds, right? And so not only is your confidence rocked, but as you go out into the world, you're not sure what step to take next. You're actually met with paralysis because you've consumed too many ideas. You've consumed so many ideas, you don't know what path to take. And this is where I come in and solve that problem for people. Through our marketing agency, it's coming in and it's figuring out this is where you need to be. And then when you leave the conversation with me, you get it. You're like, oh my God, everything is so much clearer. But when I was trying to market to people my services based on they want more money or they want more leads, it didn't fit and it didn't really speak to their pain, right? Like, in other words, they didn't really resonate with what I was saying. But when I say like, look, what I do is I solve your confusion around marketing. And I can start with just like, are you confused? Have you been confused? And you're like, yes. Great. Let's talk about that. And as we go down that path, we can create clarity around all the things that confuse you, right? We can create clarity around marketing. And then from that place of clarity, what we do, right? Like once you get clear, listen, you can see that in confusion, it's very hard to take action or consistent action, right? It's very hard to be focused when you're confused, right? Guys, it's hard to be focused with your family when you're confused. Like you're confused in business and you come home reading more books, watching more webinars, trying to do all the things you can to get an edge. And all the while, like you start to ignore your family, right? You start to check out. You're so over, like, and I just know this because it's been my journey. You get so fired up about figuring it out, right? Like figuring out the confusion that you forget about working out. Like you stop taking care of yourself. You're like a dog on a bone just trying to get an answer, but you can't get an answer. You're like trying to answer confusion with confusion. And so this starts to take a toll, right? But look, the flip side of that is if you got clear, once you're clear, you could actually take productive action. See, most people that are confused don't take productive action. They just take random action, hoping that it leads to something. But once you're clear, you can take productive action, remain consistent with it, not be distracted by shiny objects that come in, right? Not work as hard. Listen, guys, when you're clear, you don't have to work as hard. When you're confused, you got to work all day because you don't know what you're doing what of the things you're doing is going to work. Once you're clear, you don't have to work as hard because you know the path you're on. You know the things that work. You know the things that don't work. And so you don't invest time in the things that don't work. Guys, on the other side of clarity is the money, is the leads. Do you see? But see, for so long, I was trying to solve money and leads, and I was missing the actual problem I solved, which is confusion. But once you solve confusion, it leaves people with money and leads, right? So that's like that is what my agency does. Like that's what we do inside of our agency. And once you get clear about where you want to go in the path, like then we as an agency are able to step in and help you with the very tangible things you don't have time for, right? Like we make it easy for, once you know how, like once you know where you want to go and you're clear, what's left is the how. And then my agency can kind of come in and help you with the how. But I was always trying to sell the how. And what I was missing was that what I'm really selling is the problem that I solve. It's your confusion. So for some of you, right, you're hitting at it too generally. You're trying to solve the problem too generally. And what I want you, in order to be relevant and to stand out from the competition, what I want you to look for are the nuances inside the problem, and then speak to that in your content. Then not only speak to that in your content, but realize that that is actually what you're selling. You're selling a solution to the nuance of the problem. I don't just sell marketing support. I sell solving confusion. When you're confused, I fix that for you, right? It's in the nuance that people go, this is different. This is unique. This is actually a problem I have. And too many of us are trying to sell from the general problem, not the nuance of the problem. And too many of us are creating content from the general problem, not the nuances of the problem. By the way, when you speak to the nuance, people get that you're for real, right? Because everybody's talking about the general problem. But when you have been down the path of those problems and you see all the nuances that others don't, and you speak to that, people go, dude, you know what you're talking about. Like you're talking at a higher level than other people are talking about this problem. And so then people see you for the valuable expert and resource that you really are. So when it comes to creating content and selling, I want you to look in the nuance of the problems, right? Or the nuances of the problem, and not just the general problem. And when you do that, what I think you'll start to find is you stand out, right? And listen, not only are you standing out, but for the sake of your people, you're helping them in a way that nobody else can, because nobody else speaks to the nuance. Okay? All right, gang. That's it for tonight. If you want to learn more about what we do as an agency and how I can stop your confusion, go to mygroundswell.com and learn more about what we do. You can book a time with me there. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. And until then, have a good night.